Hello there, and welcome to Death Star Radio, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Lorenzino Estrada, joined by my co-partner, my co-pilot, Christopher Howley. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. How you doing, Zeno?
I'm doing real good. I'm super excited to start talking Star Wars with you. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Of course, I've been looking forward to doing this. We've kind of talked about this for a little while.
We really have.
Yeah, so we're both students at the at Walter Cronkite School at Arizona State. We're both sports journalism majors. So we've been talking about this for a while during our sophomore year of college here. And yeah, we've just kind of been putting pieces together, see when we're going to finally do it. And today's the day.
Yeah, we thought no better time, and like what you said, something that we bonded over. Most sports journalism students are more into the sports part, obviously, and you and me bonded through movies and obviously through Star Wars. You're showing me slowly the Marvel movies, and I'm showing you slowly the DC movies, and we're trying to find that middle ground. But I think that's what Star Wars is for us, and now here we are with Death Star Radio.
Yeah, I was just glad to find somebody who is, I guess you could say, a little bit as nerdy as me in a way. You got that side of you that you don't ever want to really have come out until you meet somebody who can appreciate it.
Definitely.
But so yeah, I mean, I'm just glad we're here. And while we're introducing ourselves, why don't you give everybody a taste of how you really got into Star Wars?
Yeah, well, for me, it was my dad. He was there, opening weekend for what was just Star Wars at the time. It ended up being A New Hope, and then he just absolutely adored it. It was something that he never seen before. So then when I was growing up, he showed it to me, and then I really took off with it, and for me, it's always been an escape. It's always been something that I can get my mind off of things and the stresses of everyday life, if you will, and just a place where I can get lost and just feel like a completely different person in this galaxy that just there's always something new, there's always something different, and it's just perfect for the imagination. So what about you, Chris?
Yeah, so in a way, it was kind of the same way, except for it wasn't my dad. It was one of my best friends growing up. I mean, I guess it's kind of easy. I mean, speaking about how we bonded, the best way for me to get into Star Wars was through another person. We both did it together. It was my friend Kyle in elementary school. We would go to his house after school. My parents would pick me up around 5 when they get out of work, but he just lived down the street from the school, so we'd walk there every day, and we'd play Star Wars Battlefront, talk about the movies, watch the movies, all that type of stuff. Yep. What the biggest thing that really got me into Star Wars, like that really solidified it, was going to see Revenge of the Sith with him. One of the best experiences I've ever had, and I was just so in awe that I was able to go see a Star Wars movie in theaters, because the best Star Wars movies were obviously from the 70s and 80s, and everyone was thinking about that. Revenge of the Sith, although not a perfect movie, has some great scenes in it. So as a kid, it kind of changed my life in a way, and I think it changed it for the better. So we're that's kind of how I kind of started into this Star Wars whole universe thing.
Yeah, for me too. Revenge of the Sith was the first movie I remember seeing in theaters, and it just absolutely blew my mind. And Force Awakens too. Obviously, there was a bit of a hiatus for Star Wars after the prequel trilogy, and then Force Awakens came back, and it really just reinvigorated my passion for the series. And I couldn't say that I'm the fan that I am right now if it wasn't for that sequel trilogy and what it's done so far. And we're obviously going to talk about our favorite movies a little later, but I'm just so excited to have this podcast and be able to talk about Star Wars with someone who loves it just as much as I do. So
I mean, I agree.
Yeah, and a reason why we decided to do it now is because on May 31st, something big happened in Star Wars, and it wasn't really on the silver screen, but it was at a theme park, because Galaxy's Edge opened at Disneyland, and it's a amazing immersive experience. We haven't gone yet. I think you and me are actually in the process of planning a trip to Anaheim to go visit Galaxy's Edge very soon, but we've been watching videos about it. We've been reading articles, seeing people's tweets and Instagram posts, and it just looks absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah, no, I can't wait till we actually get this trip going and possibly end up getting there ourselves. But just thinking, I mean, once they announced it, I forgot what year they announced they were doing it. I mean, it seems like forever ago now, right? I mean, I always just thought Star Wars Land's going to be in construction forever. I never thought it was going to open because it just seems so exciting. And when they announced that they were going to have the full Millennium Falcon and everything, and now that there's actually pictures of it and people going on the new ride, Smuggler's Run, and everything, it's just holy cow! It's breathtaking, and you're not even there. I can't even imagine when I'm there if I'm probably. I mean, I'm probably not the only person who's going to be doing this at Disneyland over the next probably like 5 years. You pay for your price to Disneyland, you just go straight there and you spend your whole day there. I mean, Disneyland's been there for how long? If you've been there, you don't need to see the rest of it anymore. But so yeah, it has been phenomenal just seeing all of the like you said, Instagram posts and tweets. But I'd love to run down some of the cool things that we have seen, and I mean, let's start it off with the ride. I haven't seen much of the ride myself, the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run,
Uh-huh.
simply because I think you're in kind of the same boat here. I've seen some pictures of where you sit. You sit kind of in like a cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, and there's a
Mm,
couple seats there. But I don't want to see a video of the ride just simply because I want to experience that for the first time while
definitely.
I'm there. I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's definitely me.
No, I feel you exactly because, I've been watching a lot of videos of people going through and walking around, going to the shops and the restaurants, things like that. And once they say, okay, let's go to Smuggler's Run, skipping through that video. I don't even want to look at the queue for that line. I want to be able to experience that myself because it looks great, and some details about the ride like what you said, you go into the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, and there's 6 seats, so 6 people per ride. You got 2 pilots, 2 gunners, and 2 engineers. And the great thing about this ride is that it's really tailored to what goes on in that specific cockpit. Anything can be different because, for all we know, I mean, I don't know the details of the ride because I don't want to know, but if the gunners miss their shots, that's not going to help. If the engineers can't fix whatever they have to fix, if the pilot crashes in to a wall or something or another starship, that's not going to be good. So I think that's what's so cool about the ride, that it's different every time you're going to go. Something different is going to happen, and you can get a different position, every time you're on that ride, a different seat. So I think it's going to be a really cool experience, and every time that you go on, somewhat like Star Tours, except Star Tours does get a little repetitive sometimes. It's going to be different every time you go, and I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's what they were shooting for was to kind of get the unique experience because I like you said, Star Tours had kind of started to get pretty. They had the original Star Tours. They remodeled it at Disneyland and Tomorrowland and everything in there, and it eventually just got repetitive. Like I rode it the last time I was at Disneyland. I rode it probably 3 or 4 times, and I know there's a certain amount of different like missions you can go on in the Star Tours ride. And I think I got the same one 2 or 3 times. So it just kind of seemed repetitive after I went on it, and especially with how long the line is, that's a little disappointing. But I do like the aspect, like you said, that it kind of depends on how you perform while you're in the cockpit.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I guess that's just it, it's an overall theme for that, for pretty much for the land, the ride itself and the land itself. It's made for the Star Wars fan that's just has immersed themselves in Star
Yep.
Wars. It's
Mm-hmm.
just I'm sure there's so many things just in the line on the way to that ride that if you're a Star Wars fan, you're going to stand there and you're going to be enjoying it. You may wait in line for 2 hours, but it won't matter
Yep.
because
Exactly.
you'll just love every minute of it, and that's what Disneyland looks like they have created. And as a Star Wars fan, that really really is exciting.
Yeah, and like what Bob Iger said, who's the CEO of Disney, that this is going to be one of the most immersive experiences in Disney Parks history. And if you download the Disney Play app, there's a lot of stuff throughout the land that is in the language, the language of Black Spire Outpost on Batu, which is where this land is located in the galaxy. And you can just scan it. You put your phone up to that language, you scan it and it translates it. Things like that. That's going to be available through the queue. And I mean, we haven't been there. We hope that we're there soon. But from videos, it just looks absolutely amazing. You feel like you're on another planet. And Smuggler's Run is one of the two rides. You're going to get Rise of the Resistance as well, which is going to be one of the first trackless rides to be at a Disney park in America. So again, another immersive experience, another ride that's going to just take your breath away. There's supposed to be two full-sized AT-ATs in that ride, and that ride's going to open sometime in the fall of this year. So once that opens as well, you're going to have these two rides, and you're going to have all these other experiences you can go to throughout the park. And, I can't, I'm going to say it a lot of times on this podcast, but I just can't wait to get there.
Oh, no, I'm with you on that. And the fact that they're adding another ride, and it seems that in a way, although it is supposed to be one outpost in the Star Wars universe, I like how it looks like they're going to be embracing every era of Star Wars with Rise of the Resistance, assuming that Smuggler's Run has something to do with Han Solo and Chewie, maybe in between Solo and A New Hope, or maybe you would assume it's something with Han Solo and around that time period.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. I had heard some things that maybe that's not the case, but I think with a ride like that, obviously you're in this cockpit, but there is a screen in front of you. And just like Star Tours, it can be changed. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe every now and then they want to throw something different in there. They want to put you on a different, again, we don't know much about the ride because we don't want to know, but they put you on a different planet. Maybe it's a different mission. Maybe you're all of a sudden in this other era. Maybe you're in the Solo era, right? Before A New Hope, in between Solo and Rogue One, things like that. So the ability to change that ride could be beneficial for them down the line if they just want to shake things up every now and then.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like I was saying earlier, I love how with Rise of the Resistance, they're going to be embracing the other one of the three eras, if you want to consider it, in Star Wars history, with the one with the sequel trilogy, as many people call it. Mm-hmm. And I love how they're going to be doing that. And like I said, it's just for the Star Wars fan that just pays attention to it all.
Yeah,
they're just making it for everything, and it's just great. It's fantastic. The ride itself, all of the pictures. And like you said, you're going to say this a lot. I just cannot wait to get there because I don't know. We may have to go multiple days because I don't know if I'll be able to survive just one day.
Yeah, and especially, again, some more news about this. Reservations are required as of right now up until June 23rd, and those reservations are gone. And even if you have a reservation, you can only be there for 4 hours. And I'm not too sure. Like you said, you have to be there multiple days. I'm pretty sure a 4-hour time period is not going to be enough to be able to truly, enjoy it and to bring it in and to understand what you're actually in, and as of June 24th, that reservation system is going to stop, but there will be sort of a virtual queue to get in. So you could go, June 25th when that reservation system is unavailable, but on your Disneyland app, you can request to go to Galaxy's Edge. And if there is enough space, well, then you will be able to go in. If there's not, then you'll be in the queue, and then you'll be notified when you can go, and you'll have 2 hours to be able to go. So I'm assuming that queue is going to be filled up throughout the entire day. The best time you're probably going to want to go is early in the morning once, rope drop and you just run straight to Black Spar Outpost.
Yeah, it's going to be insane. It's going to be like Black Friday, but at Disneyland, everybody running toward one spot. But I was talking to friends that have planned trips there, family that have planned trips in the future here. It seems like this one land is going to be busy for the foreseeable future, and I'm not talking months. I'm talking years.
Oh yeah,
because for some, a trip to Disneyland may not be that big. For others, it's huge. So going to see Star Wars Land, for me, it's a little bit bigger. Even though I do live in Northern California, it's a little bit bigger I didn't see Cars Land when they built Cars Land. I was really excited for that. I did not see Cars Land for maybe 3 or 4 years after it came out, and it was still packed with people. That's just
Hmm.
because not everybody can get there the first year or two. So for a lot of people, they're not going to be seeing this land for 5 or 6, maybe 10 years. So
Yeah.
it's going to be pretty busy, and I mean, I guess this is something people are going to have to deal with, and I think this queue system may work out. We'll see how it works out because electronics can always go down, and that could be a big problem. But I guess that'll be a big test for Disney and the future of Disneyland as going forward.
Yeah, and also something that I wanted to mention is what Disney did to even get the name of Black Spire Outpost out there, because if you watch Solo: A Star Wars Story, there are two references to this land in the movie before this land had even opened. And one of them is when L3 is walking with Lando. This is when they first meet Lando and they agree on his percentage, his take to make the Kessel Run. And he says, "We're going to Kessel," and she's like, "What if I don't elect to go to Kessel?" And then she says, "You couldn't even get to Black Spire without me." So, and then a little bit earlier, Kira tells one of the servants on Dryden Voss's yacht. She says, "Have you been attentive to Doc Ondor?" Which is something that we're moving on to next, which is the shopping that's there at Galaxy's Edge, because there is a store called Doc Ondor's Den of Antiquities. So it's something that sells collectibles, if you will. There's busts of famous Star Wars characters like the Emperor, or even like Padme Amidala, Princess Leia, things like that. So I think that's going to be a huge part of this as well. And we're seeing it already in a lot of photos, that the merchandise is something that is going to add to that immersiveness of the park, but also just be able to to be good for a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, of course. And you speak of merchandise and everything. Obviously, they're going to have the Droid Depot where you build your own droid, and Savi's Workshop where you're going to build your own lightsaber, which I think is kind of cool because ever since they came out with that in the Universal Studios, where you could make your own wand in the Harry Potter land.
Yep.
I'm not gonna lie. When I first thought of that, I did think a little bit like, what if you could build your own lightsaber? And I know
Yeah.
Disneyland had a kind of, it was in one of the stores in Tomorrowland, but this is obviously probably going to be a little bit more in depth to your lightsaber because it will be in Star Wars Land. But
Hmm.
I mean, the merchandise, everything down to the food. We'll get into the food later, but everything is going to be like you said. It's going to be like you're on another planet. The the stores, the names of places. Heck, I haven't seen pictures, but if the bathrooms aren't Star Wars themed, I'd be shocked.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be a really. I mean, if Disney didn't need more money, I mean they're going to get a lot more now.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I'd love to go more into this build your own lightsaber thing. I would like to know personally from you, maybe not anyone else wants to know, just you, what color would your lightsaber be?
Oh man. Oh well. Again, more details on this. It's going to cost $200 to make your own lightsaber, which is a
Yeah,
hefty price tag.
of course.
But there's four themes that go it, and it's a bit of a show as well. You get about a 20-minute show, and while that show's happening, you're making your own lightsaber. And I think just the atmosphere of it, because you're on Black Spire Outpost, which is controlled by the First Order. So obviously they don't want Jedi running around. So when you get to Savi's workshop, it's actually a scrap heap, and you tell people like, "Oh, is this where you build the lightsaber?" And they're like, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you mean this scrap dispenser area? Is that what you're talking about?" And you're like, "Oh, okay. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. This is where we can like put a bunch of like scrap together." And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So even that is so much fun. But there's
Yeah,
four themes to this, and there's peace and justice, power and control, elemental nature, and protection and defense. And for me, I'm more of a Sith guy. I like the Sith more than the Jedi. And power and control is cool, but looking at the pictures, I think the best looking one, and probably the one that I'm gonna make, is elemental nature. I think just the parts of it and the way, just again the theming, how good it looks. A lot of browns, a lot of greens, again like elemental nature. I think it's very cool, and I definitely want to make that one. If I'm willing to go with that $200 price tag. So, what
of
about you,
course.
Chris?
Of course. The $200 price tag is going to be a hefty one after already paying the hefty price of getting into Disneyland.
And we are college students, so keep that in
Exactly.
mind.
Exactly. But yeah, I've always thought of Sith in a way. I mean, I just wish the Sith had more colors to their lightsabers in a way. That's
Hmm.
always been a thing to me. Like the Jedi, they got the blue, the green. If you want to go Mace Windu, they got the purple. If you really want to get into it, in the original Star Wars, Obi-Wan's looks white. But I think the power and control for me is probably going to be it. I
Yeah,
mean, how could you not? Power and
yeah.
control. That's
Hmm.
exactly what you want when you pick up a lightsaber.
Yeah.
It's just the name of it itself is just I'm all in. It's got me. It's sucked me in. So that would definitely be my go-to. And I'd probably have to make it green just because growing up I always loved the green lightsaber with Luke Skywalker and everything. So that's probably what I would end up going with.
Yeah, and even if you don't want to customize your own lightsaber, you can get uh, lightsabers from the most famous characters in the Star Wars universe. You can buy Darth Vader's, Kylo Ren's, Darth Maul's, Count Dooku's, Rey, Luke Skywalker. They're a little cheaper. They're around $100 to $150 depending on which character, but you can also do that. And not only is the lightsaber customizable, you touched on it, Chris. The Droid Depot, you can make your own R2 unit or your own BB unit. So I have to ask you. Asked me about the lightsaber, Chris. I'm asking you, what droid are you making? R2 unit or BB unit?
So the R2 unit or the BB unit? I'm not gonna lie. When Force Awakens first came out, I wasn't the biggest fan of BB-8 just because I was a hardcore original trilogy type fan, and I loved R2D2 and everything. But I think I'd have to go with the BB unit just because of how fun BB-8 has become as a character in Star Wars. And I mean, how could you not like how? I mean, wouldn't you want your droid rolling around there on the ground and everything,
Yeah.
more flexible and everything? I don't know. I just love the look. I mean, nothing on R2D2, but I like the more futuristic look that BB-8 has going on.
Yeah,
What?
I have to agree with you. The BB unit, um,
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a BB unit right now. I didn't customize them at Droid Depot because I haven't been yet, but I remember buying one at like the Disney store at my mall, and it's awesome, and I want to be able to make my own. I want to give him his own number, BB whatever the number I come up with in the moment. Um, but the experience for that looks amazing. You make it yourself. It's a conveyor belt of parts. You go and you pick them up. You bring them to the place where you put it together, and they even have like screwdrivers for you, and obviously they're Star Wars themed and things like that. So you put it together, and then all of a sudden it comes to life. And if you want to go that further step, and by further step I mean you want to pay more money, you can get a personality chip, and you put that in, and the beeps are different, and it's just a whole experience. And I think that's what's so amazing about this land so far, is that whether it be your own lightsaber or your own droid, which is something that you wanted, because Luke Skywalker had R2D2, and so did Anakin, and now I guess or Poe had BB-8. You wanted your own partner, you wanted your droid companion, and now you can do that, and they can interact too with the other droids that are there at the outpost. If they're just rolling by each other, they can actually talk to each other, and it's amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah, and that's what just adds to the experience. That's why I think Disney is so far, even though we haven't witnessed it, but from everything we've seen, they've knocked it out of the park. They were counting on people to just be in love with the experience and creating it to where you feel like you're in Star Wars. You're
Yep.
actually in one of the movies, or just like in a regular day in the life at the Black Spire outpost. So
Yep.
I think that having a droid depot and everything is gonna it improves that experience and makes it even better. And as we transition here to the food, it's much of the same. I mean, some of the things that are named, they have drinks named. One of them's named the Fuzzy Tauntaun. Everything. It's just like you would think something would be named that while
Yeah.
you live in the Star Wars, because I mean there are drinks in obviously here in real life, I guess you could say, that are named just after funny things, and like that's what you would expect if you actually were to live in that universe. So I think that's something that's going to be great. And I mean, having Oga's Cantina and Ronto Roasters, and being able to choose between blue and green milk, as a Star Wars fan, that really makes me happy.
Yeah, and surprise, or maybe not so surprisingly, because it's iconic. The Mos Eisley's Cantina. Obviously, this isn't it, but that was, when you watch those movies, that is cool. That this is a place where scum and villainy come together. And they hang out. And I'm not surprised that Oga's Cantina is the most popular place right now at Galaxy's Edge, and I'm sure it's going to be like that because the line for that goes out the land sometimes. I've seen pictures. I've heard people say that's the first thing you want to go to. Even if it's in the morning, the first thing you want to go to is the cantina because it's going to fill up. And these drinks, I'm looking at the breakfast drinks, there's drinks, for certain times of the day. And I'm seeing the Bloody Rancor, that's awesome. The Black Spire Brew, the Blue Bantha. I mean, it's incredible, and you got the Bespin Fizz. I mean, just amazing names. And, we're not of age to drink these, most of them, but
Not yet, not yet.
not yet, but one day we will. And I'm excited. I mean, the Outer Rim sounds cool, just all these, it's incredible, and it even goes to the blue milk because that's something that a lot of Star Wars fans, including myself, wanted to try when they watched the Star Wars movies. You were like, man, I wonder what blue milk tastes like, and then in The Last Jedi they introduced green milk, and it's like, I just want to try that. And now you have the opportunity to do that, and I think that it's incredible. It's incredible.
I mean, as a kid, I don't know if you did this as a kid, but we would, look up. I remember when Star Wars was. I mean, it's always been big, but like when the prequels were coming out and everything, you know how advertising on the back of cereal boxes and everything goes with like what's popular
Mm-hmm.
and everything. Like there's a lot of stuff. It's June right now, 2019. Whenever you're listening to this, and Toy Story 4 is coming out, and Toy Story 4 is probably one of the most advertised things on regular day household items.
Yeah.
Whether it's toilet paper, paper towels, uh, paper plates, cereal boxes, everything. So it's just like when Star Wars was around that, like doing that. Um, on the back of one of the cereal boxes, they had the recipe for blue milk. And
Mm-hmm.
so I remember me, my mom, my friend Kyle, we all decided one day that we were going to try and make blue milk. Now, it tasted like regular milk with a little bit of blue dye in it, but I mean, as a kid, that's better than regular milk.
You're drinking blue milk from the movie.
Exactly. So seeing Star Wars create a blue milk, which for those who are lactose intolerant and everything, it does not have dairy in it. So it's almost everybody can try it. I mean, I'm assuming that there isn't anything else in there that most people are allergic to or can't consume. But with it not being dairy, it's they made it for all Star Wars fans to enjoy, and it'll be kind of cool to try it, see if it tastes a little differently than what I tried when I was like 6 or 7.
Yeah, yeah. And again, another restaurant, moving from Oga's Cantina is Ronto Roasters, which I'm sure you guys have seen pictures of it, but the meat is being grilled or heated by a pod racing engine. That is what is actually cooking the food. And you see one of the robots from Return of the Jedi, on Jabba the Hutt's barge. You see him, slowly turning the meat, and all those Easter eggs. There's a thread on Twitter about all the Easter eggs. One of them is actually the helmet and the gun from the soon-to-be released Mandalorian Disney Plus show. So that's cool as well. But at Ronto Roasters, you can get the Ronto wrap. And actually, what I want to try the most is the Tatooine Sunset drink, which is unsweetened tea, lemonade, melon, and blueberry. I mean, not something that you would think would be something that someone wants to try the most, but for me, I'm a big iced tea guy, so that's definitely what I want to try the most while I'm at Galaxy's
And
Edge.
I mean, if you think about it, the Tatooine Sunset, think about it. It's unsweetened tea, lemonade, melon, and blueberry. Those colors make me think of the way Luke looks at the two suns,
I
or
didn't
the
even think
two
about that.
moons, or whatever anybody wants to call them here, in A New Hope. And I
Hmm.
mean, I'm assuming the colors probably come out the same, assuming that's why it's called the Tatooine Sunset.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm probably a little bit more curious of to see how it looks, but I've always been an Arnold Palmer guy. I know that's usually sweet tea, but yeah, no, I'll be trying it. Considering it's listed here as $5.49, which for a drink at Disneyland is probably a steal at the moment. Yeah, I will definitely be giving that a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure when we go, Chris, you and me will be trying a lot of things, even if it's a bit out of our comfort zone. There's a couple things on these menus that I'm looking at, and I'm like, I'm not too sure about that, but it's Star Wars. I gotta immerse myself in the land, so let's do it. Let's try it.
100%. I'm totally down to try anything. And well, hopefully we'll get a nice podcast in when we eventually go. I don't know when we're planning on going, but it will happen. It will
Yeah,
happen.
live from Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, I don't know about that much, but it will happen. It will happen. And I'm really looking forward to trying out a lot of these new things. And I mean, like you said, there's Easter eggs all over the park. I did see a video on one of the first days it was open. They had a first order officer yelling at people, and Kylo Ren coming down from his ship and entering.
Mm.
And I can't wait to see how the Disney, I guess you call them cast members, even though they're employees, how they perform at their job and see how
Hmm.
they do it, because they've always done a great job with everything else. And now that
Yeah.
with its Star Wars, you see all the stormtroopers walking around and everything. I'm just really excited to see how that all plays into the whole experience. I'm sure it'll play in a big time, like a big amount. But like I said, I can't wait for that.
Yeah. And you said Kylo Ren's ship is there. I mean, we haven't even talked about that there is a life-size Millennium Falcon in this land.
Exactly.
There is a life-size A-Wing. Poe's X-Wing is there. Kylo Ren's ship. I mean, just the amount of the execution and the detail that has gone into this park from the pictures that we've seen, it's incredible. And it looks like it's definitely going to be worth it. It's going to be worth that admission price to Disneyland.
100%. Honestly, I mean, I'd pay that much money just to be there for a
Exactly.
day. So it'll it'll be exciting. And is there anything else you wanna go over with this whole park? Because I I don't know what else to say other than I really cannot wait to go.
Yeah, I mean, of course we're not going to be able to talk about everything because we're not there, and I'm sure there's so many other things that we're not going to be able to mention unless this would be a 3-hour podcast if we go into every detail of Galaxy's Edge.
Would
We're just going to have to discover it when we go.
Yeah, which that 3 hour podcast may happen following our review of the land
Yeah.
when we go see it. But
Exactly.
for now, we're not there, so we can't quite do that.
Exactly. And hopefully by the time we go, Rise of the Resistance will also be open, so we can fully experience what the full capacity of the land. So
Exactly. So, um, I would like to bring us into one of our segments that we're going to plan on doing here in our podcast. It's called "What Are We Watching?" slash "What Have We Watched?" slash "What Have We Read?" We got to come up with a better name for it. But
we do.
what are we watching? What are we reading? It's kind of goes over because we're big fans into obviously Star Wars movies, TV shows, books of some sort that has connections to it all. So this is kind of where we get into our recommendations or our what are we watching at the moment, what are we reading. The Star Wars book Alphabet Squadron is coming out here in the next week. We both have already ordered it. We will be reading it, and we will be giving our reviews and our I guess reactions to big plot points in it. And but this is going to be kind of going over what we've watched, what we think you should watch, and I'll give you the first look at it, Zeno. So give us what you've read or what you've watched.
Well, yeah. Well, first to talk about Alphabet Squadron, I'm so excited for that book. It just another good story that I'm just excited to read. And I, as big of a Star Wars fan as I am, I will admit that I am not fully versed in all the canon. I think that's very hard, obviously, with
Extremely.
books, with comics, with the TV shows, with the movies. Obviously, the shows and the movies are a little bit easier, but then when you start getting into all the books and things like that, it gets a little tricky. But I've been doing my best to start reading the books, and I have read a couple. I've read Lost Stars by Claudia Gray, which is a great book. I've read Last Shot, which is a book about Han Solo and Lando. It kind of goes back and forth between after Return of the Jedi and a little bit after Solo. But what I just finished reading, Chris, was Star Wars Most Wanted, which is a book about it's a pre, and it just gives a little bit more backstory on a young Han Solo and Kira. I really enjoyed it. I'm pretty sure I'll be lending it to you when we see each other again when the semester starts. But I really liked it. And before I start reading Alphabet Squadron, because I believe we're supposed to get that book June 11th, I'm reading Star Wars Thrawn because I haven't gotten into Star Wars Rebels yet because I wanted to know a little bit more about this character, who apparently is a great character in Grand Admiral Thrawn. And this book is a prequel to Rebels, so I'm going to be reading that. I'm in chapter 4 right now. Still got a long way to go, but I like it so far. And then movies, we're talking about just every movie. We're not just focusing in on Star Wars. And on Saturday, I watched Ma with Octavia Spencer. I thought it was all right. I mean, I wouldn't watch it again, but it was definitely a good popcorn movie, if you will. And I enjoyed it, and that's really it. So what about you, Chris?
So yeah, as Zeno mentioned earlier, that we like all sorts of things. I've always been a big Marvel fan, which I guess lends into me being a big Disney fan because it seems like everything is owned by Disney nowadays. But so I've been a big Marvel fan. Obviously, I mentioned my excitement for Avengers Endgame earlier. I just Zeno's been trying to get me into the DCEU as much as he can, just simply because Man of Steel, I didn't mind Man of Steel that much, but when Justice League came out and Batman vs Superman came out and they just weren't good in my eyes, it kind of discouraged me. So he forced me to watch Wonder Woman, which I thought was fantastic. There was nothing against watching Wonder Woman other than I just thought that DC hadn't figured out the movie side of things. But it was a fantastic movie. So tonight, actually, I will be watching Aquaman for the first time.
Let's go.
Which will cover all of the movies. I will have seen all of them, all of the DCEU movies after I see this one. And so far, I think the best one has been Shazam. Wonder Woman's up there, but I still think Shazam probably did its best job. But I'm hoping they can get their act together because who doesn't like Superman or Batman? Honestly, those are great characters. And Aquaman with Jason Momoa, I'm gonna watch it for the first time tonight, and we'll see how it goes. Speaking of superheroes, Captain Marvel was just released on digital HD, so I did end up watching that for the second time. I hadn't seen it since the day it actually came out. I saw it on opening night. And I'm not going to lie, I was a little let down the second time. The first time I was really excited for it because you just wanted to see how she was introduced, how she was going to tie into the quote-unquote biggest superhero movie of all time with Avengers Endgame. But I mean, it was a good movie. I'll give it that. But it doesn't come with it. It comes with its own flaws. That's what I'm trying to say, if I can speak. But yeah, no, it's not a bad movie in any way. But maybe I expected it to be a little bit more. I'm not sure if you have seen it, Zeno. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay, so it takes place in 1995, and you want to know how she ties into the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. And one of the key plot points they throw in here, which I'm sure you've heard or you'll see. I'm not spoiling it for you. If you haven't seen Captain Marvel, stop listening right now, I guess. But I mean, it's June. Come on, but they throw the Tesseract in the movie as a big plot point, and it just kind of seemed a little forced, in my opinion. It's not necessarily a problem, but it just seemed like, oh, there's the Tesseract, so they must have something to do with all the other movies. Because I mean, Nick Fury was already in it with Sam Jackson, and Phil Coulson was already in it. So I just think that they probably didn't need to have that element in there. And then at the very end of the movie, it didn't bother me at the time, kind of bothers me now. You find out Nick Fury calls the Avengers because her nickname on her Air Force plane was Carol Avenger Danvers. So I thought that was like, okay, I mean, it doesn't bother me that much, but there's more to it. But this is a Star Wars podcast, and I won't get into it. But yeah, those are the things I'm going into. I do plan on reading a little bit more, like Zeno does, because I'm not big into canon. But yeah, Alphabet Squadron probably will be the first Star Wars book that I end up reading. But I am really looking forward to it, and honestly can't wait for it to get to my house.
Yeah, I mean, we even got the patch, if you pre-order it, you get the patch. So I think we're kind of full on with Alphabet Squadron. So.
100%, and all the reviews have been phenomenal. So it's been a while since I've sat down and read a book. So this is going to be an interesting one.
You might be illiterate at this point.
Exactly.
So
I may not be able to read. So stay tuned for the next couple episodes because it may get interesting.
Okay. So another segment that we have is do or do not, because there is no try in Disney. And there are a lot of rumors swirling around about future Star Wars projects, things like that. And one of the bigger ones right now is that the Game of Thrones writers are writing, and they will be directing, a Star Wars Old Republic trilogy. And,
or at least that's the rumor that it'll be Old Republic.
That's the rumor. Yes, and that's something that when Disney acquired Star Wars, they erased all the previous canon that became legend, and then now they're trying to fill in their own canon. And something that they haven't even touched or gone into is the Old Republic. So this is where we have the opportunity to see guys like Darth Bane or Darth Revan. These characters that people really like, but you haven't seen them in shows, or you haven't seen them on the silver screen. So Chris, what do you think? Is this a do or a do not for Disney?
Oh, this is 100% a do. The Old Republic has always been an era in Star Wars that I feel like has just been, people throw out the words Old Republic and you kind of go, yeah, I know what you're talking about, but you don't really know what they're talking about, because it's such an area that they could do anything they want. They can make any characters that they want. They could do any, like you said, the stories of the Old Republic are no longer canon. So they could create new characters. They could build off of the characters that were already created. But that's what I like about this. This is such unprecedented territory that they can just go in and do whatever they want and tie it into Star Wars. And it's really exciting because with the Skywalker, I guess you call it the Skywalker saga. Is that what we're calling it now? Mm-hmm. There had kind of seemed like a set of rules, like, oh, there's these characters that kind of run the storyline. There always have been. There has to be a Skywalker. Leia is that remaining Skywalker at the time, as we talk right now. So it's not that they definitely shouldn't throw out the idea, but I'm totally open for it, and I think they should definitely go ahead and try it. If the first movie flops, I guess we'll have to see. But I'm definitely down for it. What about you?
No, yeah, I'm all for it. Obviously, after Disney acquired 20th Century Fox, they revealed their movie schedule, so we're gonna be getting them, not soon, but close enough. I believe it's 2021. Is that the next one, or is it 2022?
I believe it's 21.
They're changeable with Avatar, because it's 2021, then Avatar the next year, then Star Wars, then Avatar. So fairly soon, I'm assuming that now that Game of Thrones is over, the script is starting to be written, and we're starting, we're looking into to potential actors, to play. And I think I'm all for it, and I really hope that this is something that they go with, because it's a blank canvas, and it's something that you could introduce new aspects of Star Wars, and you could even answer a lot of people's questions, that go into the Old Republic. We don't know where. I don't know if this is something they would want to do, but if they want to maybe play it a little safe and give fans some familiarity with what they're doing, we don't really have an origin story for Yoda. Darth Plagueis is still a question mark. Those are definitely things that you can go into if you decide to do something about the Old Republic.
Yeah, I would definitely be more up for the Plagueis idea than the Yoda idea, just because I feel like Yoda is a character that is so. It's not that they shouldn't do anything with Yoda anymore, because they are going to be continuing the Clone Wars TV show, and Yoda's clearly got to be a part of that. But Yoda's not an untouchable character, but I feel like he's a character that he probably doesn't need an origin story. That he can probably, I mean, Obi-Wan deserves a movie before Yoda probably does. But
I would agree with that.
That's definitely something we can get into along the lines. But I definitely think that there is a lot of territory here that they can go through and just, like you said, just experiment. Why not? Mm-hmm. They got all the money in the world. They're owned by Disney now.
They really do, yeah.
So I'm excited to see what the future holds for especially this trilogy. I don't know what's happening with the Rian Johnson trilogy. The rumors have not been looking great, but I'm just excited to see what they're going to do here in the next coming years.
Yeah, that's another do or do not. The Rian Johnson trilogy.
Yeah, we'll decide on whether that should happen or not, right?
Yeah. Have you seen Last Jedi? Okay, we'll talk about Last Jedi soon. So, well, I think that's gonna do it, Chris, for our first episode of Death Star Radio.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys listening to our first episode, and this should, as long as everything goes as planned, we should be releasing these weekly, and you can come here to hear our reactions on the latest Star Wars news, and maybe if you're looking for some recommendations for things to watch or read, listen to our what are we watching /reading /read/watch section that we haven't named yet. But yeah, so definitely stay tuned in. Follow us on Twitter at Death Star Radio 1. Unfortunately, Death Star Radio is taken. But
thanks,
yeah,
whoever that was.
Yeah, so definitely give us a follow to stay updated. We do polls, we post memes, we post cool Star Wars content. So go
daily too.
Daily, we try to keep as up to date as we can. So we appreciate you guys listening, because I mean, honestly, otherwise we'd just be talking to each other and nobody'd be hearing us.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. Thank you guys for listening, and we hope to see you guys next time.
Yep. May the Force be with you, everyone.